Feels like a good day to have a Super Bowl mailbag, doesn't it? And this time, it's a Super Bowl victory mailbag. Let's talk some Chiefs. Welcome to the Chief of the North mailbag. I'm Seth Kaiser, the Chief of the North here on RGR Football, where every week we answer your questions regarding the Chiefs. Man, it's been a great year. I'm just thrilled. I'm still as thrilled as I was on Monday when I came to you guys previously talking about the Super Bowl win, some of the big storylines that I felt kind of emerged from that week. In the meantime, since then, I've also written, in addition to Andy Reid, about Andy Reid and the masterclass that he put forth in the Super Bowl. I've written on the Chief of the North newsletter about the offensive line and incredible performance by all of them. Just after a whole several weeks of hearing what a mismatch it was, they came out and dominated. It was awesome to see, with some help from Andy Reid schematically, some help from Patrick Mahomes by being brilliant, maybe a little help from from the turf monster, which definitely affected both sides. But one thing that's interesting, oh man, there's going to be a lot of that. I can already tell. I'm apparently I'm allergic to winning. Oh, that's rough. The one thing that got brought up in terms of the turf monster stuff before we even get started with the mailbag and we do all, the official stuff, the turf being an issue, or not the turf, the grass being the issue, the field during the Super Bowl. One thing that's worth noting, the vast majority of plays where offensive or defensive players for the Eagles slipped, the offensive lineman was already in position, had the blocker beat. Mitch Schwartz actually talked about this a little bit. And I think it's important to note in terms of people say, oh, it was because of the bad field. That hurt them, I'm sure, but also hurt the Chiefs too on some of the plays that they fell down on. There are certain plays where they could have gained more yards or made a better play on defense, but they slipped too. So it really was kind of a two-way street. So, as you know, I'm allergic to winning, and that's all the Chiefs do anymore. And so I'm going to be sneezing a lot this episode, apparently. Either that or someone is trying to poison me in the confines of my office, which I can't say I can completely rule out given what I do. So, as we do every week, I put out questions for mailbag, and you guys always provide me with wonderful answers or wonderful questions, and then I try to answer them. So I'm excited to do that. The difference, obviously, in this week is that this is a Super Bowl victory mailbag, and so I could not be more excited. I'm actually pulling up right now our last mailbag just to see if there were any questions in there. I didn't think they were. Okay, someone did ask, are you required to wear a black shirt with a black and gray striped tie? If not, why not wear a white shirt with a red and gold striped tie? Because darker colors make people that are not in good shape look not quite as chunky as they actually are. Anyway, let's go through this every week. Like I said, we try to do the mailbag. Ryan and I are going to talk about off-season plans here, exactly how we're going to be doing things. I do plan on, at least for the next few weeks, continuing in terms of the Mondays and the Thursdays. I'm so excited to answer all your Chiefs-related questions. What a great year. What an incredible season it's been. So if you want to ask mailbag questions for next week, you can put them in the comments below, not in the live stream comments, but the comment section below. Or you can wait for me to tweet out asking for questions and then give me questions there on Twitter, and I will try to answer them. As we swing into it, please make sure to like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things, support Ryan and the great crew he's got here. I'm here too, but mostly support Ryan and the crew because they do a fantastic job. All right, let's mailbag. From Adam Gabriel Jensen, he says, take every player we have on the rookie contract. Who do you give big money? Who do you let walk? Who depends on price? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through because you can basically start off in 2020 or so and look at all the guys you have on rookie contracts. So one thing I would note is that right now, because he listed out, Creed, Snead, Smith, Gabe, Bolton, Moore, all the defensive backs. So everyone from this year's class is TBD. It's to be determined. McDuffie looks like he's going to be great. Karlaftis has been solid. I could go through the list. I mean, all these rookies that contributed this year, without whom they don't win the Super Bowl. That's obviously incredible, but it's all to be determined. They might take a step back next year. They might take a massive step forward. Maybe 3 years from now, we're talking about, superstar Sky Moore, and we're wondering whatever happened to Trent McDuffie. I mean, those things happen all the time in football. So there's really a lot of unknowns there. And to a lesser extent, you have some of that even with the guys from 2021 that have been in the league for 2 years. But, we can kind of start with there. Guys, so Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, those are guys that you pay. I think Trey Smith more so than Creed Humphrey. It depends on the price tag. Centers are often a little bit cheaper than guards with the current way things are working. It's going to be hard to keep both of them, though. That's just the nature of the beast. It's very difficult, especially when you have a quarterback on a large contract and at least one receiver on a large contract, which I assume the Chiefs will. It's very difficult to have 3 linemen on large deals. You gotta kind of keep churning through that. So that's going to be very, very difficult. If I were to pick one, Creed Humphrey is, I think, the better player. I think Trey Smith's a very, 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 very good player. So it's not really a knock on Trey Smith. It's just a testament to how great Creed Humphrey is. I think he's a top 3 center in the NFL. Nick Bolton. It'll depend on continued development and price tag. He's definitely a guy that I want in Kansas City, but it'll depend on continuing consistency in terms of being a pass defender and being able to handle guys reaching him at the second level. He played an excellent Super Bowl. That was awesome to see. I actually had a few people send me angry DMs because I'm maybe viewed as someone that's been down on Bolton. I would just say Bolton is a good player with a defined skill set. And that's not an insult. It's just what his film is right now. And that defined skill set with the correct game planning, you can see how valuable that can be. And so that was, I don't know if they win the Super Bowl without him. The fumble play, Hurts just kind of dropped the ball. But Bolton was right there in position, read the play perfectly, was there to scoop and score. That's awesome. And in theory, could have had another scoop and score, which would have been hilarious on a play that sure seemed like a catch to me, especially if the other one down the sideline later on in the game was a catch. But what do I know? Now, where the real questions start coming in, guys that have been with the team for 3 years. Some of the guys that got on rookie contracts. So Mike Dana, definitely a guy you want to keep in town. It's going to partly depend on price. He may be in the process of pricing himself out of Kansas City. I think we're going to know a lot more after this next year. Lucas Niang, I'm guessing they probably let walk in free agency. Willie Gay Jr. is a guy that I would definitely try to keep around. It does depend on price to an extent, but Gay is actually a player that every time I watch him, I'm impressed. And I've repeatedly viewed him as maybe the best linebacker in Kansas City, even with Bolton's ascension. And so it's interesting to me. There feels like there's a disconnect between what I think I see on film and how the team views him. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is very likely to probably not have that fifth-year option added on. In terms of some of the guys that are going to be free agents this year that are on rookie deals, Juan Thornhill, McCole Hardman, and Colin Saunders, it would not surprise me if all of them were allowed to test the market. And maybe if they don't quite get the market they're looking for, then Kansas City brings them back. I think the guys they're most likely to bring back are Thornhill, then Saunders, then Hardman. I do think that with the unfortunate timing of Hardman's injuries, I think there's a chance there's not as much of a market there for him as there would have been, and then they have the opportunity to bring him back. That was a long question. Goodness gracious, Adam Gabriel Jensen. Scott Lorraine asks, thoughts on Frank Clark, his future with Kansas City, his existing contract. His current contract is not palatable for next year. It's just too big. Had you asked me before the season, I thought it was a no-brainer that they cut him, they move on. Now, this was probably his best year in Kansas City. He wasn't I don't think he was even the Chiefs' second best pass rusher. I think that was Mike Dana, which is a testament to him. But he did well in Cullen's system. He's strong against the run. He is a leader on the defense. I think it just depends on what he wants. One of the problems when you're dealing from a position of guy that was brought in to be a superstar and was given a superstar contract is that he may not want to take, a veteran type deal like what you've seen the Chiefs do with Carlos Dunlap and Mike Ingram. But I don't think his play was necessarily significantly superior to either of those. And in fact, I think Dunlap might have been just as good or better this year. I think Ingram was better last year. So what do you do with that? It depends on his cost. And he's said some things that make me wonder if he might be open to this, if he's willing to sign, a 2-year deal that's, a relatively inexpensive thing. And I'm talking like similar type deals to like what Dunlap and Ingram have done. I think he's worth keeping around. Otherwise, I think you have to move on. As much as he adds to the team in terms of intangibles and all that stuff, you need to have high level pass rushers, and he is not necessarily that at this point in his career. And hasn't been for a while. So you can't pay him in a way that might prevent you from bringing in another high level pass rusher. Jetty Red asks, you're in charge of offseason free agency and roster building, excluding draft. What is the plan? And then said some very kind things about times, hours. Thank you so much. Excluding the draft, I think my plan in terms of free agency, I would try to figure out a way to upgrade the defensive line in a way that's practical, even if it's a little more expensive, and put you in a position to where you've addressed one of your bigger areas of need. And then that would be the biggest one for me, would be defensive line. They're going to need to figure out what they want to do with Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley. My guess is they will franchise tag Brown, and Wiley might have priced himself out with that Super Bowl performance, because it really, all it takes is one team. And he does have a lot of starts under his belt. He's a relatively competent tackle, been kind of playing out of position, honestly. And it's hard to keep those guys around. So they got to make their plans there. I would also, with Juju Smith-Schuster, you either bring him back or you take a look at a guy who's relatively equivalent, either way, spending on a second receiver, a guy that you're comfortable with who can maybe help against man coverage. That might be a skill set to really look at. That's what I would do, trying to address those maybe more glaring needs or guys that you kind of need to replace. Juan Thornhill's a guy that they definitely should try to bring back as well. That's going to be a price point, though. That's going to be a price point issue for sure. Dwayne Simpson says, would love to see a breakdown of Mahomes, the offensive performance this season against top 3 defenses. Seems every time KC played the best defense, the offense was spectacular. I'll keep that in my back pocket. They definitely did step up against really good opponents. They're just a freakishly good offense. The only team that really has any kind of success against them, the Bills did when they played with Von Miller, and then the Bengals. But even then, I mean, it just wasn't quite what you'd be expecting. Evil Monkey says, Evil Monkey, guess on total number of babies born in Kansas City 9 months from now, how many are named MV Pat? I have no idea what you mean. I don't know what to tell you. Nathan Danagelis asked, if a position group could win Super Bowl MVP, Chiefs O-line would have won it, right? No. I think Mahomes still wins it. I really appreciate what the offensive line did. It was so important for the run game. I do think that if you swap out Mahomes versus the O-line, I think either one of them, you probably don't win the game, but I do think Mahomes' importance, because that affected so many other things, like that allowed the run game to be successful, that sort of thing. That's the influence of Mahomes that does that. So I think Mahomes just barely. Mike MG says, I missed these being article. I still do them in the comments section. Mike, you relax, buddy. And I'll maybe even do a confetti giveaway with them. It's hard to say. Ian says, does Justin Ross ever play a snap in a Chiefs uniform? Outside of preseason, maybe. We would need to see significant development from what we saw last year. I think when the pads come on is going to be the big thing with him. He's got to show you can create at least some separation and keep up in the offense. You can't just be a contested ball guy. WPS Ethan Michael Douglas says, in your humble opinion, does Clyde ever see the field again as a member of the Chiefs? Seems like he'd start as running back 3 at best next year. A lot of people, people noticed that Clyde was essentially a healthy scratch for the Super Bowl. My guess is it wouldn't surprise me, given how I'm guessing there's probably a gap between that and how Clyde views himself as a player. He's always been a star, at every step. And the Chiefs really treated him like a star basically every year, even coming into this year, until he was kind of overtaken by Pacheco and McKinnon. My guess is he has to be released. I could see that happening. Or he has to be traded and they don't find a partner, and so they just release him. I could see that happening, because otherwise, he's probably coming back as running back 3 next year. Rich Eckert says, can we put the Andy Reid is no good at time management topic away? That was a clinic. It has been since Mahomes. You know what? I'm glad that Rich Eckert, not Rick. Did I say Rich or Rick? It's hard to say. I'm glad you brought that up because that's actually something that I've been harping on since the Super Bowl ended, that Andy Reid was able to answer a lot of the questions and criticisms of him over the years with this particular performance. Not only did he put on a clinic play calling like he often does, but he did a pretty good job overall with time management. The only when I think about the way the Chiefs handled, let's say, I mean, they did certain things. They made sure to snap the ball at the end of the third quarter to buy themselves an extra play while they were still trailing. That was a big deal. That matters, and they gained like 10 yards on it. The only mistake that I saw with the way they handled their last drive, the 5-minute drive, was Juju Smith-Schuster going out of bounds rather than staying in bounds. The only thing is they were on the wrong side of the 50 at that point. So in theory, I can understand them wanting to still preserve time right then, just in case your next three plays don't work out and you got to kick it. You want as much time left as possible in that case. So even then, I'm not sure it was really a tactical error. Overall, he did a great job managing the clock and a great job. One thing I've come to appreciate about Andy Reid with what we've seen in the playoffs, he gets the play in on time, and delay of game penalties are not common for them, or wasted timeouts because of delay of game stuff. And even a well-coached team like the Eagles, you see that played a role. I'm guessing Nick Sirianni, for one thing, that one delay of game for 5-yard penalty, that mattered. And then he had to burn a timeout later on, and boy, did they need that timeout later. It's at least worth noting. Jared Beasley says, what would you do about the wide receiver group? Who you bringing back, letting walk, draft picks, etc.? I think that without addressing Juju quite yet, I think, you have MVS, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore. I think you bring back Justin Watson on a cheap 1-year deal. And then I think that you draft a guy in the 3rd round or higher. I think they should do that every single season. They have Patrick Mahomes, because wide receiver, you can never have too many bodies. Grab a guy. And then in terms of Juju Smith-Schuster, he did come on really strong at the end of the Super Bowl. That tends to price guys up. And I would just say it's worth noting that without injury concerns, Smith-Schuster was on his way to probably an 1,100 or 1,200 yard season, and contributed a ton this year. Those nagging injuries, though, those cause me concern. I appreciate everything he's done, and I think the easiest thing would just be to bring him back. He's a great fit for what they're trying to do. It's just, is his knee going to continue to nag him multiple times throughout the year in ways that rob him of a little explosiveness or even hold him out of games? That's tough. And so they need to figure out what they want to do with that, but they need to bring in an equivalent, $15 million a year type receiver, I think. Adam Musto asks, what do you foresee for Chris Jones' future entering the final year of his deal? Re-signed to big money, whispers, trade. I think if I were the Chiefs, I would extend his contract. That buys them a significant amount of money if they want in 2023, which is great. And one great thing, because his cap hit is like $28 million in 2023, you can re-sign him for big money, have that cap hit in 2023 still be a decent sized one, like a 15 million one, to where you're not pushing quite as much down the road, and still save yourself like $10 million in cap space. There's a lot of wins to go around there. He's still not on the wrong side of 30. He is arguably the best defensive player in the NFL. He's a complete game changer. I think you try to keep him around. You don't, and we talked about this previously, the Tyreek Hill trade was a little bit of a different thing because you have the Mahomes factor to bounce that out, and they didn't have as much flexibility as they do now. The reason they have that flexibility, the Tyreek Hill trade, but that you want to be careful not to let the pendulum swing too far in that direction to where, well, then we'll have even more flexibility. Well, sure, you'd have more flexibility if you traded every star, but there should be some balance and approach to where you keep some of your stars. And I think Chris Jones is a foundational guy that you can build a defense around like they did this year. Mike Lewis says, I think the draft will depend on what they do with offensive tackles. If they sign both, you won't have to draft a tackle with Niang and Kennard. Would love to know what the Chiefs think about Kennard, who didn't play a snap this year. Not really a question in there. I don't know what the Chiefs think of him. I do note that he had a pretty steep learning curve to try to play tackle. He did play tackle in college, but I know there's concern about his foot speed, and it seems like they couldn't quite get that. It wouldn't surprise me if they start shifting him to guard. I agree that what happens with Brown and Wiley is going to really color what they do everywhere else. I'm guessing, like I said, I'm guessing Brown gets the franchise tag and they end up drafting a tackle. That's my guess because I think Wiley might have priced himself out, and I hope he gets the bag. He's done nothing but do everything the Chiefs have asked of him over the years, and I really hope he gets the bag. Scott Schulman asks, with so many rookies playing excellent this season, do you think the Chiefs are actually even better next year? Is that possible? Absolutely, it's possible. It just depends on some of the moving parts with guys like Orlando Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Juan Thornhill. You're always going to lose some valuable pieces. Colin Saunders played a valuable role. You're always going to lose some of those guys. Carlos Dunlap was only on a 1-year deal. That's, that the defensive line, they need to continue to throw talent at it. But yes, 100%. I think one thing that's worth noting, though, is people expect rookie projections. They expect development to be linear. And it rarely is with rookies. So don't be surprised if next year we're wondering, well, why is, insert rookie here? He looks worse than he did as a rookie. What happened? That happens sometimes. Development for players isn't linear. And we never know when guys will hit their ceilings. That's why you can't take a guy. You can't just take a guy and, okay, well, he was average his rookie year. So his second year, he'll be above average. His third year, he'll be good. His fourth year, he'll be great. And his fifth year, he'll be a superstar. That's just not how it works. There's a lot of guys that, they're kind of average players, and they kind of go up and down. Like some years they're above average, some years they're below average. I'm not saying that's the Chiefs rookies, but it's just worth noting it's not an assumption you should make. Brian Dorfler, said we were all psyched with Snead as a rookie, took a small step back in year 2. Do you see that in store for any of our rookie defensive backs? If so, who? Man, way to anticipate my answer to that last question, Brian. That was great. I wouldn't say necessarily expect him to take a step backward. I think what happened with Snead is that he was asked to take on a significantly larger role in the defense early with Tyrann Mathieu suspended, and there were some mental errors that were made there. And then once that role kind of was settled a little more, he played much more like himself. I think the most likely rookie to take a step back in year 2, I guess, would be Jalen Watson, just because I just don't think Trent McDuffie will. And Watson was good this year. And so that's hard to repeat as a rookie, especially when you have some physical limitations. But I really like Watson's game. So it's hard for me to anticipate that with any of them, honestly. They were just, man, they were good. See, I'm talking myself out of my own answers. Indiana Jones Burner asked, what did Spags do that helped our defense shut down the running back game so effectively? A few things. I'm going to be writing about the linebackers soon. They played forward. They spent a lot of time executing some run blitzes and loading up the line of scrimmage in a way that didn't allow their offensive line to pull effectively or to execute combo blocks, double teams at the line and then climb to the second level effectively. That was a big, big, big part of it. They just solved the problem with more bodies, and the linebackers did a great job executing that. That's one thing about Bolton and Chanel is that if you give them a game plan where they are told, man, we just want you to get moving forward, be physical, impact the offensive linemen, make plays in the backfield. That's what those guys do best. And so that I think that really, really helped. Derek Hayes asks, and we got time for just a couple more here. He says 2 years ago, Brett Veach rebuilt the O-line in the offseason. Last year, it was the secondary. What do you think will be the main focus for this team to improve this offseason? I think the defensive line will continue to be the overhauling one, and this might be the year you see a complete overhaul. Steven Turwelp says, I'm seriously wanting to know about Jody Fortson, his impact on the game. I know that he does more than just catch passes. If you have that, I'd love to hear your take. One of the things that Fortson has done is he's developed into a solid blocker. Is he ever going to be a lineup on the line and take on defensive ends directly? Probably not. But he has developed into a solid blocker that allows them to move him wherever they want and to utilize him in a variety of roles. And so that's where he impacts things beyond just being a pass catcher. I hope to see him continue to develop and increase his role in the offense. Kalab, I'm sorry. Livingston, my pronunciations are terrible. Can we get your favorite play of the Super Bowl from each rookie? Man, I'm gonna forget some here, and so you're just gonna have to be patient with me on that. I think for the defensive players, there were multiple times. So we'll start with Karlaftis. It's hard to say. There were a couple times that he held up the edge so well that forced the runners back inside. Though, other than that, you didn't see like a huge game out of him. Trent McDuffie, had the rough play in the end zone against AJ Brown. The defensive side of the ball, it was tough. I mean, it was a tough game. But he also made multiple really physical tackles close to the line of scrimmage, preventing any yards after catch. Sky Moore, it would have to be his touchdown. Good for him. Good for the rookie. And in terms of Leo Chanel, he made multiple plays at the line of scrimmage that I was really impressed by. He did a good job executing the assignments that we gave. With Isaiah Pacheco, it would have to be the play right before the end of the third quarter where they just lined up with 3 tight ends and just plowed straight ahead and picked up a lot of yards. That was awesome to see. That the other rookies, I couldn't tell you if there was like a specific play that they really stuck out, partly because the defense was just, man, the Eagles offense was terrific and Jalen Hurts was great. And so, it's hard to make plays there. But what I would say is each of them, they made them earn every single yard. And that matters a great deal because you're forcing teams to be perfect snap after snap after snap. And they usually can't keep it up. I'll answer one more and then it's time to get going. What's your first food stop in Kansas City when visiting? I am a traditionalist. I go to Joe's. I go to Joe's and I get a Z-Man, get some fries, I get some burnt ends. And that's probably the way it's always going to be. That wraps us up for this Super Bowl victory mailbag edition. I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier, you guys giving me your questions, you guys watching, you guys giving us likes and subscriptions and all that stuff. It really means a great deal to me. I started this job 13 years ago just so I could have people to talk Chiefs with and to. That's why I started, going on, Arrowhead Pride and messenger boards and stuff like that. And I never thought in my wildest dreams that one day it would be my job to talk Chiefs with and to you guys. This is just, nobody's got a better job than I do. This is just the best. And once again, the Chiefs are champions of the world. They are on top of the world. You should be on top of the world. It's a great week to be a Chiefs fan. Thank you for watching and participating. I'll see you guys next time.